substance, there's slightly more than rumours in that people have been briefing off the record. Not just recently, going back over quite a few months, because on many areas, he's done things which have caused a lot of disquiet within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You mentioned the attacks on September the 14th. 5% of the world's oil supply was then halted, half of Saudi's production. The argument is that he should be able to defend and protect Saudi Arabia. The war in Yemen, it hasn't come to any conclusion. It doesn't look like coming to any conclusion at all. It's bad news for Saudi Arabia, for their alliances, and especially for the tens of thousands of people in Yemen who've been killed and those who are still suffering. But apart from that, we go back just over a year yesterday, to the death of Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate here in Istanbul. We had the commemoration 24 hours ago. The CIA in America believe he is responsible. He says, you may recall him speaking a week ago, I had no direct involvement, but I take full responsibility. But let's get the views of David Hurst. He's the editor of Middle Eastern Eye. He's been following this for a long time, following the Crown Prince bin Salman, and he gave us his views yesterday, especially in reference to the death of Jamal Khashoggi.
I think in ordering Jamal's death, he basically paid his own rule a terminal blow. And I think it's now he can rule. He can still rule with an iron hand. He's just as much a tyrant as he was before, and prosecutions are still carrying on with the death penalty. There's a Muslim scholar who's going through court right at this minute. So nothing's changed in Saudi Arabia itself. But his image, particularly in the West, which he spent billions actually cultivating in London and in New York, the IPO in Aramco, that's changed. And now he's become much more of a toxic brand to the great and the good and to the West, which he relied on.
So you have to bear in mind the contrast between how this man was viewed when he first came to power as the de facto leader. He was courted by all of the major heads of state. He was at the White House. He was seen as the great reformer, the man to go forwards. And things have changed for this man markedly in a year. Is he going anywhere? It's a moot question. And bear in mind as well the G20 summit, where he was effectively sidelined in Buenos Aires last year, next year is going to be in Saudi Arabia.
Right. And this is what I was insinuating a little bit in that introduction, that in spite of all, and you mentioned as well, the tens of thousands of Yemeni civilians that have died, for example, in the Yemen war, the controversial resignation of Saad al-Hariri in Lebanon, when he was kind of forcefully brought to Saudi and forced to resign only to take office as soon as he got back to the country. None of that has seemed really to matter, including within the Saudi kingdom, Jamal Khashoggi's death, until their economy and the oil supplies actually took a hit. Then it sounds like the Saudi royal family itself and the prominent businessmen, then they started to worry and get angry.
You're right, and there is popularity for this man within the kingdom. He is still seen by many as something of a reformer, but the concern is, yes, about what's happened with Hariri, with Yemen, with Khashoggi, but also generally about his impetuous nature. It does seem to be rather knee-jerk, some of the decisions he makes, and Hariri is a classic example, whereas in the past, from previous Saudi rulers, decisions would be slowly baked. They wouldn't be quite as impetuous, and certainly what happened just over a year ago here in Istanbul has done a tremendous amount of damage to their image externally from Saudi Arabia.